Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And I'm going to get right into it. I'm running a little behind today because as I started preparing for this morning's live, I walked through my kitchen and I saw my oldest citizen sitting, and he's sort of doing his morning, getting ready for the bus. And I walk by and he sees I'm sort of in a rush, and I walk back by and he says, "Student found outside of high school with an assault rifle." And I said to him, "How does that make you feel?" He's like, "I don't." I said, "Okay, well, I want you to feel something. This is the time." That's today. That's his headline, because what I've done is trained my little citizens to pay attention to current events. Sorry. And I've trained my little citizen to pay attention to current events. Like that's really important to me, that they know what's going on in the world, right? For better or for worse. Now my youngest child, she's not there yet. She's not at a point where she is. I'm ready for her to independently pay attention to current events. We just haven't made it there. It's a way of, it's life. It's life. I will say that my, this morning, I'm gonna go with a bit of truth pills, for what we have. And what I'll talk about is, where I think we are, where I hope we're going, and, sort of the so what, now what, okay? But when he said that to me, it sort of hit me as this morning I'm gathering my thoughts about where we are in crisis and what that looks like. So I'm Jackie Glass Mama, Navy vet, certified doer, and your laced up legislator for the House of Delegates, 89th District. Hold on a second. Something weird is happening. And so what I know, guys, here is no matter the size of the crisis, or no matter the size, or whether it's public or personal, crises are oftentimes opportunities for new possibilities. And that's a fact. They present us with challenges, but every time a shooting happens, I feel like something in me freezes a bit. No matter how many victims, no matter where it is, when it's that kind of thing, I have a sense of my being is frozen just a tiny bit, because what I do know is I probably, like many of you, live with the secondary trauma of gun violence. It's the kind of trauma that makes you either carry on smartly or have a deep pitted anxiety when you hear a pop. Is that a firework or is that a gun? The kind of trauma that tells your child, no, you're not going to the park. And you don't give them a reason why, but really you're just scared, genuinely. The kind of trauma that every time the school's name shows up on your caller ID, your heart sinks. We're going through that. And as your neighbor and as your delegate / representative, I promise you, one thing that I can promise to you all is that I will always come from a place of truth and love, because I think that's what we need to do more of. Something that sort of processes or goes through my mind quite frequently is, did I do, knowing the way our world is right now, Did I do everything that I needed to do so that my family can mourn my death and celebrate my existence should something happen to me in this very moment? Recognizing that I'm going and putting my spouse in places and spaces. We all are, unfortunately. Like I can say, I'm not unique in this. You go to the grocery store. You go to the movies. Some of you work in schools. We're in these places where I think for me, and I don't know about you, I am frequently questioning, is my family prepared? Because in my mind's eye, I think I've seen my life, my existence cease because of a bullet. I've seen that happen for my son, my daughter, my husband, my mother. And unfortunately, the frequency in which this happens reminds me that you all, this is part of our reality. It truly is. As a legislator, I started looking at where we are. And I saw that this year, and it wasn't at the forefront of my mind until there was an investment made in it, right? There was an investment. House Bill 741. I'm saying this again. House Bill 741 was signed into law this year, and it will be enacted in July 1st. It requires school boards to create a detailed and accurate format for each public school building. Right? This is a $6.5 million investment that's being made for school systems, right? And I'm saying this for two reasons. One, for knowledge, and one, to understand how we invest when we feel like we have a solution to a problem. So Virginia is now investing $6.5 million to help school systems create these digital maps of schools. And what they want to do is that money, remember, think about where this money is coming from. It's not coming from the Department of Education. It's coming from the Department of Criminal Justice Services to reimburse about $3,500 of the cost to create these digital maps in conjunction with law enforcement. This is preparation. It's preparation for crisis in our school. And I'm going to tell you, I genuinely, just thinking about that, that's how we prepare, right? We have the map, and that's one thing. That is a reality. Having a map so that something happens, that crisis can be mitigated immediately. That is preparation. But I genuinely thought, probably like many people, that when Sandy Hook Elementary happened and all those little innocent European American faces were across the TV, because that's what I thought was valued here. Those babies were murdered. I thought there was going to be a change. It had to be, right? But when it didn't, I knew that this would probably be our reality until those directly affected by this, that generation, comes into economic, social, and political power. And I promise you, I'll be there to back them up. Promise you. And I see you putting that in the chat. That program, Vince, just for if anybody's interested in that program, because it is a resource, right? We're talking about preparation and really dealing with our reality. It's the digital mapping program for Virginia K-12. That's exactly what it's called, the Virginia Digital Mapping Program for Virginia K-12. The reality of it is, yep. And if you've ever been inside of a school when they're doing an active shooter drill, I have. I was reading to a class, and we ended up in the middle of a active shooter drill, and we all hustled into a tiny bathroom inside of the first grade classroom. It was either kindergarten or first grade. I can't remember. It was traumatizing for me. It was traumatizing for me. I mean, honestly, it's unreal to know that that's their reality. As a country, I feel like we know what we need to do. We absolutely know what we need to do, but we are not at the point where collectively we have the people to do it. and holding that in our hands, sort of holding that in our hands. Toni Morrison said, and you've known Toni Morrison is an amazing author. She said, today is always here, tomorrow never. And so I think we've come to a point where we have to ask ourselves, what will we do with our today? I'm thinking about it as your neighbor, as your delegate. What are we going to do with our today? And as I said before, I promise you I will always come from a place of truth and love, and with all the truth and love that I can muster about the reality of our relationships as a country, as a space and place in this world, our relationship with guns and our attitude about investing in communities and resources that mitigate it. I ask us, you and me, because I've been negotiating with this all night, to ask ourselves and ask our little citizens to consider three things. Because this is more than just legislation. It's more than just activism. It's more than all of this for us, because we're living in this. I ask you to consider these three things. I ask you to consider getting life insurance, because I'm going to tell you, thoughts and prayers will not pay for burial loss or lost wages. And what life insurance does is provide a safety net for loved ones who depend on you financially, who would be allowed that space to be able to afford to take time off to mourn death. I ask you guys to start estate planning. And I know this sounds weird, right? Like that may sound like, it's a hard thing to do, but thoughts and prayers are not going to help make critical business decisions when you're in the middle of crisis or middle of mourning a loved one. And I know probably when you hear estate planning, you're probably thinking like, it's for wealthy people. No, it's essential no matter your age or your wealth. Your estate, essentially everything you own, everything you have, right? Your investments, your car, your bank accounts, your property, your bed sheets, your favorite dishes. God forbid something ever happens to my daughter. God forbid. But part of her estate plan is that her bearded dragon, which she purchased with her own money, goes to her father. So Benji will belong to her father. Lucky me, right? She thinks he's the most responsible person, but she has her things that if something were to ever happen to her, she knows that the things that she cares about will be taken care of. And that's essentially what an estate plan is. It's just making sure that there's a written record of your wishes and your intentions. And these are hard conversations. They're even harder to do when you're in the midst of trauma. And the last thing that I ask us to consider with this current reality is to talk about organ donation, because again, thoughts and prayers in that moment, that's a critical moment that one would be asked, are going to help you make that decision. And really deciding for yourself in advance makes it easier for your family during an extremely tough time. And I'm saying this from lived experience. And actually discussing it with your loved ones helps them talk about the process. Here's another aspect of this reality, to be quite honest, is that even though right now this is our reality, it's not permanent. What we know is that in every community, there's always going to be work to be done. And this is a quote when we say this. In every community, there is work to be done. In every nation, there are wounds to heal. In every heart, there's the power to do it. And we can do it. I don't know that we'll see it immediately, but we can do it. And so I'll tell you, we will continue advocating to change the culture around crime in our spaces. You all know this office is working really hard to ensure that the witness protection program that was not funded when we left They threw it out of the budget in March. But when we got back here, our office worked really hard with folks to get even just a little bit of funding, because that's what we want to see happen. And we're working to get more. I'll remind you guys, next week, I will be back up in Richmond, June 1st. I don't know whether it's going to be a day or for more than a day, but that's where we'll be, trying to get the budget done. And if I'm being quite honest with you guys, we haven't heard them say that they're at even close to having it. It may be there's one or two things happening. Either they're close and kind of being coy about it, or this is a kind of a political stunt to say, legislators are not working, so look at them come back up to Richmond and leave with nothing. So it's one or two things happening, but we'll be there, and we'll be there working. Okay. Last but not least, some of the more local things happening. I always want to make sure that I share with you guys that connection, that there's going to be some looking up from the state level. The president just signed in federal reform for policing on Tuesday, in light of George Floyd's death. So the executive order is going to direct all federal agencies to to revise their use of force policies and create a database of when officers fire their firearm. That's really important. Keep a database of when they're fired for misconduct, and among other things. That's really important, as, like I said, part of our public safety agenda here is to build trust between communities and law enforcement while still leaving space for people to do the right thing. And that's not just the residents, that is the officers as well. That is super important. So as we look at the way advocacy looks up, that's a beautiful thing that they're doing it at the federal level. It would be really great if we could trickle that down all the way down to the local level where it affects us most differently. It allows us to change that attitude about accountability, right? And that same thing with the witness protection. If I feel comfortable saying someone did something wrong, I think I start to create a better neighborhood. If I feel like if a police officer does something inappropriate, that there will be some level of accountability, just like if I do, that builds trust. These are really important things. Really, really super important things. I'm looking to make sure. So let me see what's in the chat. Let me look what's in the chat. Okay, Jeans, who said you need to elect people who are willing to pass gun safety legislation and vote against those who refuse to do so. Yeah, I concur. And I think that we also kind of have to hold in our hands the unwillingness while we push for the willing, right? What do we do in the moment while we have these folks in space that will not, when I see immediately after a traumatic event, someone types or decides that the best way to move forward is to politicize it. Oh, look at what the Democrats did. Oh, look at what the Republicans did. Like, if that's our first response, that's not serving of you all. And you won't see me do that. That's just not the way I operate. And I get it, that there has to be a stark difference because people are trying to continuously get elected. But if it's not serving you, if it's not, and it doesn't, I'm not that person. That won't happen, which is why I'm being real with you about what we see happening in our communities and our ability to move forward in a way that also serves us as human beings, serves our children, serves our families, but walks us towards solutions, because we're going to need this next generation of folks, we're going to need them to be in step and understanding and empathetic of the reality of what we have going on in our city, the reality of what we have going on in our state, and the reality of what we have going on in our nation, so that they too can be on that, on the path of recognizing the root of the problems, but also funding it the same way we fund the continuous perpetuation of a problem. But thank you for your comment. Good morning, Cornell. Miss Charlene, we had a workshop entitled How to Get Your House in Order. My church helped adult children discuss with their parents. Yeah. that is super important that we recognize what it means. Even, and unfortunately, Miss Charlene, like, yeah, thinking about our parents, we have this perspective that the folks that need to be planning for transition are just our parents, and we also need to do that. We need to do that for ourselves. We need to do that with our children. They say, that some of it is the unspeakable. As a parent, all of this is warning. And the most, I think about psychologically what this does to, I don't know that life of going to school. That was my safe place, even though I lived in neighborhoods where that may not been my reality. Walking into school was always a safe place for me. I joined all the things. It doesn't make it right in the community, and it doesn't make it right in the neighborhoods. But I think we're coming to a place where we've got to choose some different investments. Helping. Yes, ma'am. So I'm making sure I didn't miss any other questions, comments. Good morning. It is a blessing to be here with you all. Super grateful. What I will say is, this week I got, there are a couple things that happened. I chose not to be posting and things yesterday as I process with my family and those close to me about having the words to come here today. This weekend is Memorial Day weekend. I did not check the weather, unfortunately, for you all, but I'll encourage you to check the weather. I would say be safe, but I want to know what that means. I'll leave with this, right? I need you to check in with yourself. I recently spent time checking in with myself on Sunday. I went to the beach with my daughter. I went to Ocean View Beach. And before I left, my husband said to me, he said, Jackie, be safe. Be careful. Excuse me. He said, be careful. And I said, what are you talking about? We're going to the beach. Why are you saying that? He's like, Jackie, with all this shooting, just be careful going to the beach. Didn't hit me until I got in the car and I got on the way, and he's truly concerned about me and our daughter going to the beach. My hope came back to me when we got to the beach, and my littlest citizen, she says, oh, Mom, I love coming to this beach because it's so diverse. There's so many different kinds of people here. That's our strength. There's so many different kinds of people, so many different lived experiences, so many different points of views. That is our strength. And I believe it's that piece that's going to walk us forward. Right? Right? Because we have in every heart, there's the power to create change. And I hope you find peace, love, and joy this weekend with your loved ones. Okay, last thing, Miss Shirley, it's most important, and I hope you find some comfort and peace as you understand about working in special education, that, you take care of yourself. You have to. Thank you, Vince, for the weather. So this weekend, as you guys prepare for your Memorial Day weekend, there's a good chance of rain, a high at 82. On tomorrow, on Saturday, it's going to be partly cloudy, no rain, a high at 84. And then on Sunday, it's going to be sunny and 82. Listen, y'all don't go out there being buck, okay? Don't go out there like your mama would have you out there. I'm just messing. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your long weekend. Until next time, you all. And thank you, Miss Charlene, for your kind words. I echo the sentiment. I want us all to take care of ourselves, but also take care of each other because we are neighbors. I am Jackie Glass, Navy vet. What am I saying? Mama first. Mama, Navy vet certified doer, and your laced up legislator for the House of Delegates 89th District. Honored to serve, and look forward to pulling that change out of our hearts and our young people's hearts that we want to see. Y'all make it a great Thursday.